welcome back to Pure EVil MMA. I'm your host, like always, Evil Eddie of MyMMAnews.com. We have plenty of MMA news to discuss. It's been kind of a dramatic week. Not really any headlines, so to say, because there hasn't been any UFC events or Bellator events just yet. But there definitely is a lot to discuss, a lot of changes for 2018, including right here in Pure EVil MMA. If you're just tuning in or you've never tuned in before, we got all new equipment here, so stepping up our game in 2018. But before we get into any MMA news, guys, make sure to subscribe down below if you aren't already here on YouTube, iTunes, Podbean, wherever you're listening to this. Maybe it's on Stitcher. And also make sure you guys are following me on Instagram and Twitter. That's where I usually go back and forth with a lot of you guys, as you know, at evil_echo. That's on Twitter, at evil_echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. And on Instagram, I make it so easy. It's at Pure Evil MMA. Facebook, at Pure Evil MMA. And you guys can find all the latest episodes, all the latest interviews at MyMMAnews.com. So, guys, like I said, no UFC events yet in 2018, no Bellator events yet, but I kicked the year off with the family. My dad just had his birthday on the 5th, and my little sister, we went out to Mohegan Sun, and as you guys know, Bellator Grand Prix is about to be there, so I sent my credentials for that, trying to get set up, but went to go support some local MMA guys, some local gyms around here. You guys might know Nick Newell. He has a gym around here, the One-Arm Fighter. Only lost one fight in his entire career, which was against Justin Gaethje. I actually talked to Nick Newell, and he said, well, first, if you guys don't know, he has a movie coming out about him, and they're still looking for an actor. I've actually interviewed him before in the past with Ted Check. You guys can check that out on Evil and Intoxicated. But it was just announced that Nick Newell's actually going to be coming back to MMA, and who knows what's going to happen. I mean, he's inspired so many people out there. There are a lot of people that doubted him, and a lot of people can relate to this young guy. So if they are making a movie about Nick, how perfect would it be if he does make his comeback now and is able to get that belt back, or even work his way up to the UFC? Because, like I said, he's only lost one fight his entire career. He was the champion for a while too, and beat some top talent. But the one guy he lost to was Justin Gaethje, who probably is on my 2017 Fighter of the Year. And like I wanted to say at the beginning of the show, before we jumped into anything, you guys have a lot to look forward to here on Pure Evil MMA, because we have the end of the year show coming up with a couple of special guests that you guys are very familiar with if you follow MMA. Bloody Elbow. I don't want to ruin any of the surprises, so you guys are going to have to stay tuned, but it is coming. In the next week or two, you're going to be seeing the drop for the end of the year 2017 award show. And a big shout out to everybody out there who's nominated Pure Evil MMA for MMA News Podcast of the Year and Best Underground Twitter account. So congratulations to everybody that was nominated. Congratulations to the winners. We have a lot to talk about, like I said, guys. Conor McGregor in the news, Mayweather back in the news, Cody No Love, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Somehow those two made it in the news, which is actually kind of funny. I can't wait to break into that. Also, Chris Cyborg, Holly Holm. I did my recap show on it, but after UFC 219, there was even more drama that followed. So we're going to have to get into that and much more. So like I said, subscribe down below, and let's get into some news. All right, so I wanted to start the news segment off with one of the biggest headlines that really grabbed my attention this week. Something that's going to be a huge change, something that we're going to have to get used to. But there's two parts to this news story, so bear with me. And for those of you guys who don't know, Jimmy Smith, who's the longtime commentator over at Bellator, looks just like Joe Rogan. He has the shaved head. He's very educated on the sport, so I think that's very important when you're commentating for a sport that's really trying to grow and get their foot in the door to a lot of homes in the United States and across the planet. So Jimmy Smith was a great asset for Bellator, but unfortunately the contract was up. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but Bellator did not want to re-sign Jimmy Smith for whatever reason, and I don't think there's any bad blood or anything like that, but you know, losing somebody like Jimmy Smith, we're like, well, who are you going to fill in his spot? Is it going to be Chael Sonnen? Is it going to be Frank Mir? Who's it going to be? Because none of those guys really top, in my book, what Jimmy Smith does. So we were all kind of confused about this. We were wondering, is Jimmy going to be going to the UFC? Is he going to be commentating there? I even thought for a second, is Bellator going to be bringing in Robin Black? I mean, with the loss of somebody like Jimmy Smith, you got to wonder what Bellator is really trying to do when we found out that, you know, they left Jimmy. Like, who are they trying to bring in here? We need somebody that's the MMA community is comfortable with, and if they don't know who it is, at least somebody that can make it exciting. And I think Robin Black definitely fit that role. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And Jimmy Smith actually went on Joe Rogan's podcast to talk about what happened. So you guys can check out Joe's podcast with him. Also, he went on the MMA Hour to talk about this. And there is no confirmation yet as to what Jimmy Smith is going to be doing. I mean, we did lose Brian Stann this year in the UFC. And I think he did a phenomenal job. But Jimmy Smith, man, I know that UFC has been trying to use a lot of commentators, fighters. Like we've seen DC in there, who does a great job. We've seen Dominic Cruz, who did so-so at UFC 219, but for the most part, puts on a pretty good commentating position. But Jimmy Smith, I think, tops DC and tops Jimmy Smith. Or what even if you see Jimmy Smith and DC together? I think that would be a great duo. We've seen Jimmy Smith do it with some harder commentators in the past. I'm not going to name names, but as soon as this was announced, people were going crazy out in the MMA community. Like, really, what is Bellator doing? This is not something that's going to better them. Like, who else out there really fits this role that is really going to make that connection with the fans like Jimmy was doing? I mean, if you think about it, Bellator in 2017 probably had at least 20% more viewers, in my opinion, or at least more, maybe not promotion, but more eyes on the sport. I mean, they had a couple of really great cards. They had the Bellator in New York City card. I think it was Bellator 189 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but they had some pretty great events on Spike TV. And the one loss is they did do the pay-per-view, but I think a lot of people caught on to, all right, Spike, they have this Bellator, and we've watched UFC on Bellator like when I was in high school growing up, and they were just getting familiar with Jimmy Smith. I mean, a lot of new people tune into their sport just because of Mayweather McGregor. Like, there's a lot of people out there, believe it or not, like including my little sister. I say this all the time. Like, there were so many people out there that were so interested in our sport in 2017, and as ashamed as we were to admit that it happened, Mayweather McGregor, it definitely helped our sport grow. And Bellator, like I said, laid out the groundwork for building the roster up this year with signing Roy Nelson and a bunch of great fighters. But you know, losing Jimmy Smith was definitely a huge loss. So they announced later in the week that the replacement, and I didn't know what to think of this, so I want to see what you guys think about this. So let me know on Twitter. They tell us that the replacement is going to be Big John McCarthy, and everybody is familiar with Big John McCarthy. If you watch an MMA event, if you watch 2 MMA events, there's no way you haven't seen Big John McCarthy. If you have friends that watch MMA, you don't really watch the sport, they know who Big John McCarthy is. He's been around since day one, almost, for the UFC, even longer than Herb Dean has been around. So those two guys going back are 2 of the most popular referees, in my opinion, and on a lot of people's book. Like, if you go out there and say, name an MMA referee, they're going to say most likely Big John McCarthy, Herb Dean, Dan Miragliotta, and so on. But it's going to be a loss to the MMA community, and especially some fighters, whether fighters are with him or against him. He's just a familiar face in the sport, just like Sitch Duran was before he was booted from the UFC. But we're not going to see Big John McCarthy in the octagon officiating fight. Now, John Bones Jones might be excited for this, but you know, I think it's definitely a loss to our community. And if you think about it, like, yeah, it's going to be more convenient for Big John because he's not going to have to travel all the time, or at least as much. But Bellator, how many events does Bellator have every year? Let's think about it. How many times are you actually going to be sitting in front of the desk commentating fights? I mean, he's been doing it for so long, so I'm sure he wants some change. But at the same time, I hope he got a good offer. I'm interested to see how he does in there, because he couldn't keep the job and do commentating. That's very controversial. I don't think a lot of people would be happy with that. He does do his own podcast. He does reach out to fans on Twitter, but it was one or the other. And this is a huge change for 2018. So what do you guys think about this? Let me know on Twitter at evil_echo. All right, let's move forward.
People are always saying about the talk, and I talk, and I talk, and I talk, but guess what? I back it up. I back it up.
All right, so moving forward, one of the biggest things on everybody's mind, or at least a good portion of the community out there, is what's Conor McGregor's deal at this point? Is he going to be fighting in 2018? He didn't fight inside the octagon in 2017. But hear me out here. I think this is so unfair. I mean, Conor McGregor just broke the record. This isn't a good record to break, but for the longest time holding a belt without defending it. He just passed Frank Mir by I think Conor just reached like the 400th day of holding the belt without defending. And I think we're just talking about, obviously, we're just talking about the lightweight title, because obviously he let go of the featherweight title. Well, here's my thing about this, that I'm not for throwing shade on Conor McGregor for this, because he had one of the biggest fights, like, in 2017. And if you go back, even though it wasn't an MMA fight and we want to see him in the octagon, if you want to see Conor McGregor at his best, I say it all the time, you want to see him in the cage. You want to see him use every tool that he has. You want to see him motivated for a fight and have enough time in a camp to get ready for his opponent, not do this whole real quick boxing thing, new sport, 0-0 record against one of the best in the world who's coming out of retirement. But at the same time, Conor McGregor didn't do that bad in there, but it was one of the biggest events in 2017. No ifs, ands, or buts. There were so many people out there just talking about it, whether they watched it or not. They knew about it. There's no way they didn't know about Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather going down. Didn't end up being exactly what we wanted it to be. It was kind of weird. It had its moments, but for the most part, it wasn't the best. iHeartRadio asked me to go on the radio show, Vinny Penn in the Morning, to talk about it, and they asked me, like, do you want to see Conor McGregor get back in the boxing ring? And these are people who don't watch the sport all the time. They're just up with, top media, biggest headlines in sports and stuff like that to talk about on the radio show. So they had me come on air to kind of discuss it. And I was like, you know what? If you want to see Conor McGregor perform, you don't want to see him box. That's not his sport. You want to see him in the octagon. So everyone's wondering, what's Conor McGregor going to do? He needs to defend the title. He did fight. He did stay active. And there was a big deal for DC not defending the title. But at the same time, he filled in at UFC 200 to fight Anderson Silva. Doesn't matter. He was still active some part in the year. He wasn't sitting on his ass. He was entertaining, doing his job, maybe not defending the title. But I understand you cannot put the entire weight division on hold, especially when you have people like Khabib Nurmagomedov, who got everyone wild up to end 2017 at UFC 219. And you have Tony Ferguson holding the interim title. So you have to make that fight happen. And everybody has been waiting for the big announcement in 2018. Usually we hear close to the end of the year or in the first week or two of January that they have something special set up for us that we can look forward to start talking about, going back and forth on social media about, and it hasn't happened yet. Like, I haven't seen Dana White come out and say, all right, Conor McGregor is going to be fighting on this day, that and that and this. And it makes me wonder, because now he's back in the gym, let's say that. And we also know that Nate Diaz is back in the gym. We also know that Khabib wants to fight Conor McGregor. He doesn't care when. But at the same time, Tony Ferguson's holding the interim title. So there's just a lot of options out there, but you have to defend the title. I mean, Paulie Malignaggi was even discussed on a couple of forums on the internet that I was just like, you guys really want to see Paulie Malignaggi come over and fight? I mean, it needs to be laid to rest. I don't want any more of these freak shows. None of these rappers trying to box. None of these boxers trying to come over. You need to stick to the original format of the number one contender is going to be fighting the champion. Like, we know who's next to fight the champ, and that should be Tony Ferguson. And we do know that Conor McGregor's back in getting ready, he's training or whatever, back in the gym. And even John Kavanaugh, his coach, was just like, listen, I'm trying to push on Conor that he needs to step back in the octagon. So that's what we're pushing for here. And we don't know if it's going to be Nate. We don't know if it's going to be Khabib. We don't know if it's going to be Tony. So who do you guys want to see Conor McGregor fight? It's definitely going to be one of the biggest fights of the year. Whether it delivers or not, leading up to it, people get excited when Conor McGregor is signed a bout agreement. So we have that to look forward to. Nothing official yet, but let me know what you guys think on Twitter. All right, so before I even get into this, let me just start by saying, after you hear this, if you haven't heard this yet, please don't go and DM this person. Please don't throw shade at them. Please don't go attack them. He's definitely had his fair share of abuse on social media. He's definitely sorry about what he had to say. He even spoke with Chris Cyborg, and Cyborg even said, you guys need to lay off. It's being handled. So for those of you guys out there that don't know, here's what happened. At UFC 219, one of the photographers for Jackson Wink was at UFC 219, and they were taking photos of the event. You know, being so tight with the camp there with Holly Holm, obviously he has personal feelings. After the event, he was on the bus and heard Cyborg say a couple of things that really displeased him. Now, we didn't know that at this point. He sent out this disgusting, judgmental, immature, unprofessional message on social media for everybody to see. And here's what he had to say. This dude is tough as hell. That being said, at the press conference, he said Holly was the first one to make his nose bleed. You are my hero, Holly Holm. See you back in the gym. hashtag at UFC 219. So right off the bat, he's calling Cyborg a dude, and we know how this rubs Cyborg. I mean, it's 2018 now, man. You can't be calling girls dudes, especially if you're a professional in a sport. First off, you shouldn't be saying anything about fighters on that level. That is not your job. That's not what you're being paid for. You are being paid to take photos, and that's it. Not associate with the fighters, not be buddy-buddy with them. Like, even me, as a journalist, a correspondent for a majority of websites over the years, you know, all the interviews I've done and stuff like that, of course, when I see fighters that I've interviewed, never like on a personal level, never like that. Like, when Christmas comes around, I'll say, just wishing them a happy holiday. But never on that level, and I would never, ever say to a fighter that they're ugly or anything like that. And if I have, I'm sorry, but it's never on this kind of level. And as a professional, to see something like this definitely frustrates me a lot, because there's a lot of hardworking people out there. There's tons of people out there that live every day for this sport, trying to promote it, trying to spread the word. And when you have somebody that is at UFC events being credentialed and calling fighters awful names, it just really rubs me the wrong way. There are more people out there that would love this job, will keep their mouth shut, and will enjoy every second of it. Now, Chris Cyborg was not happy when she saw this, and neither was the Cyborg Nation. So in response, Chris Cyborg says, "It is not acceptable for an official representative of Holly Holm, Jackson Wink, to call me transgender following my fight. Their official photographer was giving a backstage credential to attend the UFC, and I expect an apology or their ability to get their credentials for future UFC events to be affected by these actions." And I have to agree to a certain extent, and I think that a lot of people on social media kind of whipped him into shape and really put him into his place, because he was really upset about what he had to say. And he tried explaining it, and at first I was kind of taken back, like, dude, just say sorry and that's it. You were wrong no matter what happened. But after he sent out his response and he did apologize to Chris Cyborg, I kind of understood on his level, but at the same time, you got to keep your mouth shut. It is not your place to be calling fighters, female fighters, dude or anything like that, man. So I think that he should be benched for a little while, maybe a couple of months, couple of events. But at the end of the day, I think that he got his punishment. Cyborg speaking up about this and everybody jumping on this dude's back. I mean, there were so many messages from Cyborg supporters, and I love seeing that personally, because back in the day, even Dana White is guilty. Even Joe Rogan is guilty of making fun of Chris Cyborg the way she looks. At the end of the day, have people not learned that Chris doesn't take this bullshit? I mean, didn't you see what she did to Angel Magana? Haven't you seen what she's done before in the past, calling Dana White out? And, you know, this is just never ending. Chris Cyborg can't catch a break. After one of the biggest wins in her career, she was celebrating on a bus. And for those of you guys who don't know, what pissed this fighter off was he was on the bus for some reason, or backstage, and overheard Chris and her team not making fun of Holly, but there was photos that she was like, look at my foot, my toe's literally in her eye socket, like just having fun. I mean, no one was really meant to hear any of that. And you know, I've even said it before in the past, this day and age, you need to understand that there are cameras everywhere. There are people looking to be just looking for something to tweet about and get noticed, especially on this level where you're talking about UFC fighters and they're getting a response. But at this point, this guy is one of the most hated photographers in MMA at the beginning of 2018. What are your guys' thoughts about this? Like I said, don't go attack this guy. He definitely got his punishment. But moving forward, for anybody out there that's credentialed, you better be smarter than that, because that is just not acceptable. If I did that, if I was a part of a big gym, that I was a photographer, man, I would think I wouldn't be allowed an event ever again after something like that. I mean, come on. What do you guys think about this? Let me know on Twitter at evil_echo.
Sand! Sand! Sand!
So this next one is actually kind of funny, and it might not be funny to Cody No Love, but a lot of people out there definitely got a kick out of this. So apparently Jean-Claude Van Damme, recently he met up with Cody No Love. So we all know Jean-Claude Van Damme is famous for not only all the movies that he's been in, but kicking people in the face. And Cody No Love actually got clipped in the face by Jean-Claude Van Damme and was not happy about this at all. Here's what Cody had to say. He was like, oh, he didn't mean it. But I'm telling you, this guy has hit that kick thousands of times. He knows how to pull a kick. He kicked me right in the teeth, you know. I was so infuriated, so mad. I'm driving home and Uriah is laughing about it. He thought it was the funniest shit ever because Uriah was in the cage. Chris was in the cage. He was like, dude, that was the most awkward thing ever. You flipped out on him and he just dropped down to his knees and started crying. We didn't know what to do. But he did the same shit with Tyson. It was Rob's movie producer for Kickboxer Retaliation. Mike Tyson is in it. They were doing the same thing. And Mike was like, don't hit me, John. John did it really close to him and it ended up hitting Mike in the movie and like flung him back. Mike was like, dude, don't get close to me again or I will beat your ass. John was like, I'm sorry. So Rob was telling me the next scene they had to do, they were like 15 feet trying to mimic the fight scene because Mike was like, don't let this guy come near me or I'm going to beat his ass. So he did the same shit to Mike. Kicked me in the face, but you know, he was a great guy. Uriah had catered dinner the next night and we went, me and my wife, had my brothers in town actually. So we went to John and came. He was apologizing and I'm like, whatever, you know, it's all right. But I was so mad that time, he almost kicked my teeth out. So Jean-Claude Van Damme, I mean, yeah, it probably sucked getting kicked in the teeth, but you got kicked in the teeth by Jean-Claude Van Damme. Come on. How many people out there can say that, let alone say that they came to the gym and were sparring with them? You got kicked in the face by a Jean-Claude Van Damme, dude. That's crazy. How many people? I would let Jean-Claude Van Damme kick me in the face and I would not bitch about it. It might sting a little bit. I'll even take a tooth, but I lost a tooth because Jean-Claude Van Damme kicked it out of my fucking head. If you didn't catch it, like I said, I shared it on my Instagram, so go check it out. Is Cody No Love ever going to spar with Jean-Claude Van Damme again? I doubt it. Let me know. Evil_Echo and also on Instagram at Pure Evil MMA. Let's move on. All right, so as we come towards the end of this news segment, we still have UFC Pick'em winners from 2017 I have to announce here on the show. So Minion is standing by with his segment coming up, but before we end the news segment, one of the biggest and the brightest news headline this week is that our love Miesha Tate is preggers. Yes, Miesha Tate is pregnant, and when this was announced, we were all like, by who? I mean, her and Brian Caraway were together for a very long time. They're even in that movie together that Miesha was in. So every time I see Miesha, I kind of think of Brian Caraway. I think a lot of people out there do. Caraway was even known as Mrs. Tate. Like, people weren't even giving him the respect, even though he led his own career, was on the Ultimate Fighter or whatnot, even ranked top in the division. Even though we haven't seen him for a while, he had a really rough 2017. I definitely feel for him going through a relationship breakup, because when you love somebody and you break up, you're just like, you can't really focus on things like that's the only thing you're thinking about, and it affects a lot of people. It affects everybody at some point in their life. And you know, for Brian Caraway, I especially feel bad about this headline. As bright as it is, as exciting as it is, it definitely has to sting a little bit because it's still pretty fresh that Brian Caraway and Miesha Tate broke up. And here's the weird thing. When they did break up, it was kind of during the season of the Ultimate Fighter season 25 or 20, I think it was, yeah, 25, the redemption season, because if you guys remember, I don't know how many of you guys out there watched it, because the ratings were so low. It was awful. I mean, it's the Ultimate Fighter season 26. It's season 26. People still aren't even caring at this point about the Ultimate Fighter. But if you did see this episode or this season, there were a couple episodes that Miesha was in trying to help out, and there was a fight party where they all joined together at the fight house, and Uriah was there, a bunch of fighters were there, and Miesha Tate shows up. And she was kind of flirting with season 22 vet Johnny Nunez. That's it. Johnny, it ran through my head for a second. If you guys don't know who Johnny Nunez was, he was on that season Ultimate Fighter with Conor McGregor versus Uriah Faber, fighting out of Team Alpha Male, and ended up losing. They tried bringing him back on that same season. He lost again, I believe, or maybe that was Tom Lee. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. So then he comes back for the redemption season, and it's a true redemption because he was brought back again. Like, wasn't even gonna be a part of the season, but something happened and they're like, let's bring Johnny Nunez back in. So they did it, and him and Miesha were definitely, like, sparks were flying. You can go back and watch the episode that a lot of people were saying. And, you know, shame on anybody, shame on me for even being, like, reporting on this. I mean, it's kind of silly. It's kind of, like, USA Today-ish, but it's exciting news. Miesha Tate is pregnant with Johnny Nunez's baby. So, congratulations to Miesha Tate. For those of you out there that wanted to know who the father was, there you go. So, congratulations, Miesha, from everybody here at Pure EVil MMA, and especially at mymmanews.com. All right, guys, so that means it is officially time to announce our UFC Pick'em winners from 2017. And before I start the segment off, let me start by saying, you know, it's a new year, so the old league is erased. It is gone. So going into 2018, UFC.com Fantasy League wipes it all clean, starting fresh slate. So I had to make another league. And this year, well, let me say that. Last year was kind of private. Like, we had a public league, but I only announced winners that were a part of Pure EVil MMA, like really close to the show, that watch every episode. But this time around, I want to kind of open the doors up to some of our new listeners, because we've been ranking in a lot of downloads. In just 2017, we got over 100,000 downloads. So there's a lot of people obviously out there that are enjoying the content here. And I want you guys to be more a part of the show, because I think this segment especially is very fun, because we do it after every UFC event. So after every event, I usually go live and do the recap, and on the podcast, I'll announce the winners from the UFC Fantasy League. So if you guys want to hop on that, I'm going to be sharing it on my Twitter page. I'll get on that in a couple of minutes here, but if you want it, it's going to be there on Twitter. So I'm looking forward to it, but here's the catch. If you do want to join, you have to send me a DM with your Twitter tag so I know who you are in the Fantasy League, because without that, it's just going to be confusing saying this person won and it doesn't match up with the Twitter tag. So, you know, even if you're new to UFC.com Fantasy, just make it simple and use your Twitter tag as your username for us. But definitely send me a DM if you want to join, and let me know what your Twitter tag is or your UFC Pick'em. So with that being said, let's jump into our 2017 UFC Pick'em Top 10.
Since 1993, MMA fighters from all over the world have gone into battle, shedding blood, sweat and tears to prove that they are worthy of holding the title of champion. At every UFC event, as the fighters throw down in the octagon for our entertainment, each hoping to validate that they are the best by someday having a UFC belt strapped around their waist. A second competition rages amongst the Pure Evil army for the right to lay claim to the prestigious Crystal Skull belt, for ultimate pick'em bragging rights over their evil brothers and sisters in arms. And this week, after climbing their way to the top of the Pure Evil ranks, the prominent honours of the Crystal Skull are awarded to...
Thank you, Minion. So 2017, the number one is Iceman, the number one, not only in our league, but he plays top 10 in the world. So big shout out to Iceman. In second, we had Disturbed MMA. In third, our own Minion. So congratulations, Minion, on that. In fourth, General Yusef. Congratulations, Yusef. Huge part of the Pure Evil MMA army. In fifth, Chillzone 95, aka Ann. In sixth, Max. Seventh, Sammy. Eighth, Mike Into the Storm. Ninth, Wicked Ways. And 10, my girl, my home girl, Leslie. I actually came in 15th, guys, but congratulations to the top 10. It's going to be an amazing 2018. We have a lot to look forward to, including this weekend's event, which we're going to get to in a second. But first, if you are new, make sure you guys DM me your Twitter account and your UFC Pick'em Fantasy League, and we hope to see you there. All right, guys, so as we march into our first UFC event of 2018, I mean, finally, the first week just seemed like something was missing. I know that they played UFC 219 on Christmas. I sat down and watched it with my family. I did go to the recent reality fighting, support my local MMA scene here on the East Coast. I mentioned that earlier in the podcast. You know what's crazy? When I was a kid, I used to go to baseball games as a kid. I used to go to football games. We'd go to New York City and watch Derek Jeter, who was honestly my idol. If you can see behind me, let me just show you. Up here we have obviously Babe Ruth on this side, Antique, Derek Jeter right there. Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle over here, and then all of my media credentials over here. We got Ali knocking out, getting his belt. Benson Henderson, my boy Ozzy over there. So, you know, I've always been a huge fan of not just, you know, combat sports. Of course, growing up, there really wasn't anything besides karate. I took karate classes, watching Power Rangers and stuff like that. But, you know, at the time growing up, big thing was baseball, basketball, football, soccer. I mean, I played high school football. I played baseball. But, you know, for wrestling, I mean, wrestling was around. My little brother did wrestling, but I didn't get into it. And my point being, when I was a kid, we used to go out to the ball game, buy me a box of Cracker Jacks. Now in 2018, I love seeing this. There are a lot of families that went to Mohegan Sun to see a lot of the local fighters. Not even a lot of people that know these guys, but you know, it's cool seeing a lot of people supporting the local MMA scene here. But honestly, I cannot freaking wait for Mohegan Sun to have the Bellator Grand Prix, Roy Nelson versus Matt Mitrione 2. It's going down. So you know, it's just cool that people are bringing their kids out to fighting, mixed martial arts event. I mean, even at the beginning of the reality fighting event, it was just grappling. I mean, I was surprised how many people are actually watching just the grappling. It wasn't the most exciting thing, but if you know the sport and you know what they're doing in there, it is exciting, even if you don't have the commentator in here, which is a huge thing. I wish that live events you can put on headphones or an earbud or something like that and hear what the commentators are saying. I think that's something that is definitely missing in the live aspect, which is why I really like Bellator's flying cage that they're dropping, or they recently just announced and have been using. But moving into 2018, that's a big thing, in my opinion, because when you're a little kid, or even my age, I love seeing shit like that at a live event. Like, you're always looking for something to entertain you at a live event, and there's a lot of downtime at live events, a lot of bathroom breaks and stuff like that. But when you're a little kid and you go to a WWE event and you see all the lights, all that stuff, and just, I think it even gives it more, the cage more meaning, because you're realizing, shit, there's a cage dropping and these two guys are going to be locked in there and not going to be able to get out. When I was little and watched, like, I literally watched the pay-per-view of Mick Foley getting straight up dropped through a steel cage onto a bed of tacks, knocked his tooth out, had tacks all stuck in his back, bleeding everywhere. That wasn't even supposed to happen. That was like as real as it gets. And I was like, how can you fake that? Like, he fell through. That guy is definitely hurting right now. But you know, just the fact that two guys are locked in a cage, it adds a little bit to it. I mean, of course we know it's cage fighting. They're in a cage, but just to see it get dropped down, it just adds that little bit of that live atmosphere. And on top of smelling beer and popcorn and Vaseline, I cannot wait to go see this upcoming event for Bellator. But you know, when I go work events, I'm usually cage side, but I had a lot of fun in the nosebleeds with my dad and my little sister. We didn't have the nosebleed seats. We actually walked up there because we wanted some arm space and just to kind of bond as a family. And there was no one up there. Actually, there was one guy up there kind of creeping, being real creep. Like, who goes to an MMA event and sits in the nosebleed with no one, I mean, besides us, by himself? There was just a dude sitting there, wasn't clapping. He was just there. Like, I don't know, maybe it was the gender or something, just creepy. Maybe it was a ghost. I have no idea. But it was just cool to see a lot of families bonding in 2018 over mixed martial arts. So with that being said, let's start 2018 off with this weekend's UFC event. So the Korean Superboy returns to fight Jeremy Stephens. Now, Jeremy Stephens, he's been in the UFC for like a decade now. He's been fighting forever. I mean, honestly, one of the biggest things he's known by, and it's kind of sad, but it's funny at the same time, because it was definitely one of the best press conferences ever for UFC 205. But he's mostly known for this statement right here. Who the fuck is that guy? So for everybody out there that doesn't follow MMA but kind of does, like your casual fans out there, I was wondering, like, why do people always say that? They're talking about Jeremy Stephens from the UFC 205 press conference, and he is fighting this weekend. And every time Jeremy Stephens steps in there, I'm usually really excited, but lately, like, he's been hot and cold. And I'm a huge fan of Jeremy Stephens. I love him. I don't love him, but I love watching him perform. but I always feel like he can do a little bit more in there. Maybe that's just him being a veteran and not, you know, when he cracks someone, not jumping all over him and putting himself at risk. I don't know, but we see this with a lot of fighters that have been knocked out or have lost fights, or they're just not pulling the trigger enough. Against the Korean Superboy, man, this is going to be a really exciting fight. So let's take a look at the rest of the card, but I am especially excited for that. We also have Uriah Hall versus Vitor Belfort, another fighter who has been around for so freaking long at this point. I mean, literally for so long, Vitor Belfort has been around, and at this point with USADA coming in, there's a lot of people out there that are like, he's done, he's washed up, he should go, if he is going to fight, he should fight overseas, maybe at Bellator, but at the UFC at the top of the division, fighting the elite of the elite. Still at this point in his career, it can't be good for him. And I'm never one to say this fighter should retire. Vitor Belfort, I mean, if you look at the people he's lost to, it's the tough ass dudes at the top of the UFC. Like, you're fighting the best of the best for years and years and years. Of course, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. It's very hard to stay undefeated in this sport. It's just takes something very special when your body's adjusting to, I'm not saying that Vitor Belfort took anything, TRT or whatever, but at the same time his body was still adjusting that. We saw a lot of fighters go through that body change where if you look at the before and after pictures of Vitor Belfort, you can definitely tell a huge change, whether it's age or what. He's definitely getting up there, so I'm kind of happy that he announced that this is going to be his last fight. He said that last time, so I'm kind of I don't know how to feel about this. Maybe he is feeling that way, but if he gets a win like Matt Brown did with a nice little elbow, drops Uriah Hall, he's still going to have that thirst. There's no way he's not. And for fighters out there that, want to retire and they're on losing streaks, as soon as they get that win, it's like, how much further do you go? Like, as a fighter, you want to go out with a bang. You don't want to go out on your shield like Brad Pickett earlier in the year losing in the last round. It was just so awful. So it could be the kiss of death in a way when you announce your retirement before a fight, because when you're in there, obviously you really want to get the win, but you can give up easily. You're like, this is my last fight, I don't want any more of this, I'm going to tap, or I'm going to drop and get the TKO loss. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to Vitor Belfort, but it does happen when fighters do announce their retirement. It could be a sign of weakness in a way. It could not. For Vitor Belfort, though, if he gets this win over Uriah Hall, man, I don't know if he's going to actually retire, but we'll see. So for Uriah Hall, he has a 13-8 record, and he's only won 2 out of his last 5 fights. I mean, he's coming off a win, and right now he is actually the moderate favorite to win, but he's coming off that TKO win over Jotko. But before that, he went on a 3-fight losing streak. He lost to Gegard Mousasi in their rematch, he lost to Derek Brunson, and he lost to Robert Whittaker, who is now the champ. All tough guys in the division. And if we look over at Vitor Belfort's side, he's coming off a win over Nate Marquardt just 7 months ago. Before that, there's that loss to Kelvin Gastelum, but Kelvin Gastelum actually got popped for marijuana, so that was a no contest. And before that, Gegard Mousasi beat Vitor and Jacare Souza. And then going back 2 years ago, we have that win over Dan Henderson. Looking at this one here, I mean, both guys really need the win, and underdog here by plus 235 is a Vitor Belfort. I'm honestly leaning towards Uriah Hall here, and I see a lot of you guys out there on Tapology, 88% of you actually are going with Uriah Hall on this one. I'm going to have to agree. I'm going to say Uriah Hall takes this by TKO probably in the second round, and the reason I say this is because we've seen Vitor Belfort come out in the first round with the Vitor Blitz, right? If you can survive the Vitor Blitz, you're in good shape in the second round. You can probably get him, tired enough to finally get the finish. But in his last fight, if I remember correctly, Vitor Belfort did not come out like a wild animal and was actually pretty smart about it. And it might be because he said it was his last fight or whatnot. But in this fight, I'm going to expect the same thing. I'm not going to expect Vitor Belfort to rush out, especially since he's announcing this is his last fight. We might even see Vitor Belfort not pull the trigger because he's nervous. He wants the perfect performance. I mean, there's just so much that goes through your head, I can imagine. And I've never fought inside the octagon, but I can only imagine the pressure, especially when you announce this is going to be my last fight, which is why I say not a good idea to say before your fight. DC said this a while ago. I said the same thing when he said it. It's just a sign of weakness, and definitely a pump for Uriah Hall. But at the same time, Uriah Hall is not in a position where he can afford another loss. So I'm going with Uriah Hall to win this one by TKO, probably in the second round. Also on this card, Paige Van Zant versus our girl Jessie Jess, who's coming from a quick turnaround. I mean, her last fight was her UFC debut only 4 weeks ago against Bec Rawlings, where it was a split decision win for JoJo. Now, JoJo has an 8-4 record. She's from Australia, but she actually trains over here, and honestly, guys, she's very well known. I mean, she had a great 2017 where she really broke into social media, and a lot of people were catching on to what she was doing. So I definitely recommend going and following Jessie Jess on Instagram, because she definitely engages a lot with her fans. And this day and age, that's so important if you're a fighter, because going back, MMA really is brought up by the underground forums and through Twitter and stuff like that. And it's really important that fighters interact with fans. And, you know, even if a fighter, I've seen this so many times, whether it's in sports or music, but when somebody well-known likes somebody's tweet, like, it means the world to some people, literally. And they'll be your biggest fan forever, and all you have to do is press a like. I mean, TJ Dillashaw, I don't think he runs his own personal account, but he's a good example of somebody that probably has a PR go out and go on Instagram and like a bunch of people's stuff, and people are like, oh my god, TJ Dillashaw will like my post. It just means so much, and you can get so many fans from that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who love TJ just because they liked him on Instagram. They might even watch this fight. Who knows? But people get super excited when they see those famous people like their tweets. And for this case, Jessie Jess does a lot of that on her Instagram, so definitely go follow her. And also Paige Van Zant, who really had a rough past year or two. I mean, when she came into the UFC, everybody was like, oh my god, 12 gauge Paige Van Zant. What can she really do here in the UFC? She doesn't look like a fighter. She looks like a freaking model for H&M or something like that. Blonde hair, blue eyes. What is this girl doing? They matched her up against Felice Herrig and was just like, oh my god, did that really just go down? This girl, I cannot wait to watch her fight again. And she was pretty successful. I mean, Dana White got behind her tenfold. Her, Conor McGregor, Sage Northcutt at the time. I mean, this is going back 2015, early 2016. But at this point, Paige Van Zant has had a couple of losses, kind of a rocky road. I mean, looking back, after the loss to Rose Namajunas, I believe, she went on Dancing with the Stars and gained a lot of popularity there and came back over to the UFC to get her mind straight. And I actually think that helped her a little bit. And we could tell at the end of the fight that her dancing was incorporated with how she won the fight, with the kick the can, knocking Bec Rawlings out with that crazy kick. Definitely a beautiful performance by Paige Van Zant, but it's been hot and cold ever since. So this is going to be a fun fight. Huge win for Jessie Jess if she can get past Paige Van Zant. But honestly, I think Paige has what it takes to win here. She is coming off that loss to Michelle Waterson, losing by rear naked choke. But before that, that win by Bec Rawlings, that was brutal. And that wasn't too long ago, where she lost against Michelle Waterson. That was 1 year ago, actually. So it was a while ago. It doesn't seem that long ago, honestly. But 1 year ago now. So Paige really needs a freaking win here, more than anything. And I think that she could definitely get it done against the young gun. But if Jessie Jess can come out and get one of her signature wins, which is probably... If Jessie Jess wins this, it will probably be by decision, honestly. Her last couple of wins have come by decision over at Titan. But, you know, Jessie Jess has lost some fights by decision. So, if Jessie Jess does win, it will probably be by decision. If she loses, this fight will most likely go to decision, in my opinion. But I do kind of see Paige getting a finish somehow. I'm not sure. I'm not a psychic, but I'm rooting for Paige here on this one. Even though I love Jessie Jess, no disrespect. This is what makes it so hard for my job, because I love all of these fighters. I don't want to have to pick against them. I even question if I should sometimes, but in this case, for you guys here, I have to is my job to tell you what I'm thinking about this. And right off the back, this fight's probably going to go to decision, and I'm leaning towards Paige Van Zant to be more active, but Jessie just has some pretty nice footwork and some great striking skills, so we're going to have to see. Also on this card, a fight that so many people are looking forward to, Kamaru Usman versus Emil Meek. This is a fight that almost didn't go through too. There were some issues with the passport for Meek flying over for the fight, So it all got situated. Everyone was going nuts. They really wanted to see this fight. Kamaru Usman, you guys are probably familiar from that season, Ultimate Fighter. He was a big part of that season of the Black Zillions versus American Top Team. And he is on one hell of a roll right now. I mean, not only is he working on his commentating skills with Titan FC, but he is on one hell of a winning streak in the UFC. And his last fight over Sergio Moraes by TKO was only 3 months ago. And he legit, I believe, called out Emil Meek on this fight. I mean, I don't remember what the exact story is, but these two were beefing and both wanted to fight one another. But here's the thing. After this fight, whether it's Meek or Kamaru Usman, they need a freaking ranked fighter after that. And a lot of people out there are going for Kamaru Usman to win this one. I'm going to agree here. You know, plus 450 heavy underdog for Emil Meek and a negative 600 huge favorite for Kamaru Usman. So I don't know. This could be a lot closer. I'm actually surprised that the odds are that spread apart here. I mean, the last time that Emil Meek lost is almost 3 years ago. Wasn't even in the UFC. I mean, Jesus, man. He's only has one UFC fight, so I do understand, like, he is kind of a debut guy, but his first win was against Jordan Mean via decision a year ago. I see why Kamaru Usman is a favorite, but to be a plus 450 underdog, it just seems a little harsh here. This is going to be an exciting fight, probably going to be fight of the night. It definitely has all the potential to be fight of the night. I'm expecting Kamaru Usman to get the finish, probably by TKO. But probably could go to decision. We see a lot of them, Kamaru Usman's fights go to decision. So let me know what you guys think about this on Twitter at evil_echo. Are you as excited as I am about this? And just for people out there that are watching the show that haven't watched before, don't know who I am, make sure you guys are tweeting with me on Fight Night. I mean, that is one of the most exciting things about Twitter, is when you're watching something live and communicating with the rest of that community, whether you're watching Teen Mom or watching Dancing with the Stars or a basketball game. But where it's really at is on UFC Fight Night or Bellator Fight. Really, it's UFC Fight Night, where Twitter it's just so much fun. I mean, you share so many moments with so many people, little funny memes that come out during the fight that we usually forget about, but it's usually a fun night. And everyone that tunes into this show especially, we always have a blast on Fight Night. So make sure you guys are following me on Instagram and also on Twitter, because that's where it goes down on Fight Night. So definitely get that done. All right, so moving on in this card, there's a couple more fights that we definitely need to run down. Darren Elkins versus Michael Johnson, and this is pretty low on the card. I'm surprised about that. I know that Michael Johnson isn't too happy about it. He thought that he should have got the headline. I mean, he's going to his hometown, but at the same time, I mean, I understand that he did have one of the best fights of the year, but he was also on the losing end of that fight, and I believe he's like 1-4 in his last 5 fights. So you can't headline an event coming off a couple of losses, even if there were really exciting fights. You're just not going to get it. And on this one, he definitely needs a win. I mean, he's on a 2-fight losing streak right now. Darren Elkins just seems like it's funny, because you wouldn't think Darren Elkins is unstoppable, but he's been taking out some top talent, man. I mean, when he beat Dennis Bermudez, I was like, what the hell? I mean, there was even talks about him fighting Jose Aldo, and I was a little worried for Jose Aldo. But Darren Elkins, man, I mean, that comeback against Mirsad Bektic was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Definitely one of the best comebacks, if not of all time. I mean, maybe not of all time, but definitely falls in the top 5, and definitely number 1 in 2017. So Darren Elkins, I mean, he's paving the way here in 2018 if he can get a win over Michael Johnson. Really nice win streak he set up. But here I'm going with Michael Johnson. He has solid striking, and I definitely think he can get the win over Darren Elkins here. But if Darren Elkins can beat Michael Johnson, matter of fact, let's take a look at the odds. Let's see what the Vegas odds makers are saying. Wow, Darren Elkins is only a slight underdog at plus 135. Michael Johnson is a negative 155 slight favorite. But I gotta go for Michael Johnson here. But Darren Elkins, it's gonna be really hard to take him out. I mean, we've seen it in a lot of his fights. You can get him into the 3rd round looking like he's hanging on by a thread, has one foot on a banana peel and the other in the grave, and somehow pulls it out to get the win. I mean, that Mirsad Bektic fight, if you guys haven't seen that, please go back and watch it on UFC Fight Pass, because it is so worth it. That's going to be another very exciting fight. Let me know who you guys got on Twitter, but it seems like 51% of you are going with Johnson, 49% with Darren Elkins. So it's a close one. Another fight that could be a fight of the night potential here. Also, James Krause versus Alex White here. James Krause coming off that season Ultimate Fighter, getting that win over Toothless Tom. I did not love Toothless Tom. That was almost a mismatch there. And he's going to be fighting Alex White, who's coming off a win over Mitch Clark just 3 months ago. Going with James Krause here. I mean, he was on that season Ultimate Fighter Redemption, and he definitely redeemed himself. But I wanted to see him fight somebody better than Tom Galicchio in that last fight. That really just didn't seem fair. Tom had a great season on that run and surprised a lot of people, but that last fight, it was like, I don't think Tom's ready for the UFC. But James Krause definitely looked great in that fight and wasn't giving Tom any slack there. So this should be a great fight. And honestly, 84% of you guys out there think that James Krause is going to take this one, and I definitely have to agree there. Most likely James Krause is going to win. Either, if it's not submission, it's probably going to be a decision. And honestly, Alex White, if you look at his last couple of losses, it's mostly decision losses, but he does have a TKO loss. I don't know. I'm going with James Krause probably to win this by decision. Also on this card, sticking out, Thiago Alves versus Zach Cummins is on this card. I'm probably going with Thiago, but Zach Cummins putting together a 2-fight win streak, so if he can get together another win, I mean, he just coming off that submission win over Nathan Coy. Nate Coy, man, he's a tough dude, and that was 8 months ago, so Thiago Alves, man, coming off that win over Patrick Cote 9 months ago. This should be another great fight, but moderate favorite going to Zach Cummins here. Plus 182, Thiago Alves. Also on this card, there's a lot of girl fights. Jessica Evil Eye against Kalija Ferreira. Now, I'm not very familiar with who Caldria Ferreira is, but I can tell you this about Jessica Evil Eye. She is 1 out of 4 in her last few fights, and she took a little break, but she is in dire needs of a win. I'm surprised the UFC is even holding on to her. She's on a 4-fight losing streak. She hasn't won a fight in 3 years, going all the way back to the Leslie Smith fight 3 years and 1 month ago. After that, she lost to Miesha Tate by decision. She lost to Juliana Pena by decision. She lost to Sarah McMahon by decision. And then she lost a very close fight, which I really think should have went to Jessica. Betch Correia won via split decision. I really think that Jessica Evil Eye won that fight. It was close, but Betch Correia, for some reason, when she was doing her little dance and twerking, somehow knew that she won the fight. I didn't think she did that much to deserve it, and I was a little surprised by the judges' scorecards on that one. So that being said, maybe that's why the UFC was being a little lenient. Maybe Dana saw the fight going for Jessica too. Who knows, but she definitely needs a win here, and I think she can definitely get it done. Her opponent is coming off a loss to Mara Romero Barella just 3 months ago. But before that, she's coming over from Titan FC. She was a big prospect on a 3-fight win streak, but 2 losses coming off your debut. If you lose to Jessica Evil Eye here, probably won't get that next fight. I don't know what her contract is, but definitely if Jessica doesn't get the win, I do not see her staying around UFC much longer. She might have to drop back down to Invicta, but I'm praying for her. I love Jessica Evil Eye, one of my favorite female fighters out there. So, Jess, we're rooting for you. Let me know what you guys think on Twitter. I always love hearing what you guys have to think. Moving forward, guys, there's only a couple more fights on this card, but the ones that I want to talk about, another female fight, JJ Aldrich versus Danielle Taylor. This is a fight that nobody's talking about. Danielle Taylor, she just has so much energy. She is like 4'0", but so is JJ. JJ's a little killer too. This is going to be an exciting fight, and I don't think a lot of people are even aware that this is on the card. Danielle Taylor on a 2-fight win streak. She beat Sohee Ham in that split decision a year ago, and then Jessica Penne 8 months ago, winning by decision. JJ Aldrich is coming off that win to Chan Mi Jeon 6 months ago, but right now the slight favorite is going to JJ with a negative 135. On this fight, though, I'm going with Danielle Taylor, and I don't know what is making me think that. I'm a huge fan of JJ, but every time that Taylor steps in there, her game is improving so much. And I believe that she's also a cop or a teacher or something like that. It's like there's some weird aspect there about her where she lives like a double life. So I think that's kind of cool about Taylor there. And for a cop to be a fighter at the same time, it just makes so much sense. But when you see teachers as fighters, it's like, what happened there? So Daniel Taylor versus JJ Aldrich, it's definitely a sleeper fight, but definitely should be a lot of fun. Mike Santiago versus Mads Burnell, and Kung Ho Kong versus Guido Canetti is on this card. So I'm going to be dropping all my predictions on Twitter, so look out for that. I always drop it on Fight Night. And also, one last thing. We're going to be announcing the Pick'em winners directly after the last fight, which is going to be Jeremy Stevens versus Doho Choi. So make sure you guys follow me on YouTube. If you're listening to this on iTunes, head over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and you can get down on the action live with the live chat room. 2018, I have a lot of things that I've been working on. Been doing a lot of studying how to improve the channel here on YouTube and iTunes. So a lot of big things planned, and I really want to open the doors here to anyone in the MMA community out there that wants to join in on our fantasy league. It is so much fun. We're going to be doing the segment here on the show, so it even adds that extra flavor. I mean, anyone can make a league, but to have the show and the segment and hear your name being announced on the show week after week, it's just a fun thing. We built a great community for Pure Evil MMA, so make sure you're using hashtag Pure Evil MMA on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can see who else interact with us. But it really goes down on Fight Night, and after the event, like I said, goes down right here on YouTube, so subscribe below. We do it after every UFC event. We have a lot of exciting things planned for 2018. We also have the end of the year show. Eddie Mercado from Bloody Elbow should be joining us. Mean Gene from Mean Gene's Fight Scene, and a couple other surprise guests that you guys are very familiar with, especially if you're on Twitter, follow the MMA community on the internet. You're going to know who's on our end of the year show, and I don't want to ruin the surprise. I cannot wait for it. Also, one last announcement before we let you guys go here. The merchandise, Pure Evil MMA merchandise. I'm going to be releasing limited edition shirts for this month. They're only going to be available for 21 days, so make sure you guys hop on that to rep official Pure Evil MMA merch, become part of the street team out there, and I have a couple of cool designs dropping. And even if any of our listeners out there have some designs they want to drop, maybe I'll even do some signature shirts from our listeners out there. So that would be pretty cool. Moving in 2018, I have some pretty cool ideas. Also, I'm going to be dropping a video of some fighters that you need to look out for in 2018. If you're new to the sport, if you just tune in during Maymac, like you're 16, 15, even if you're 45 and this is all new to you, we're going to have a lot of fun this year here on Pure Evil MMA. And do have to say, there's a lot of fighters out there that people need to know about. So I'm going to be dropping the video here on YouTube, and I will release it on audio podcast. So definitely subscribe down below. It's going to be a great 2018. I literally can't wait. There's so much I want to tell you guys that I've planned that I don't want to unwrap yet, but definitely stay tuned. So hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Make sure you guys tune in on Fight Night. Make your predictions on UFC Pick'em. DM me your username, and let's get the ball rolling for 2018. Congratulations to all of our Pick'em winners, everybody that joined in for Pick'em for 2017. Thank you for everybody in 2017 that even tuned in. 100,000 downloads. Even to be nominated for the end of the year awards was just so huge and really got me so excited. I mean, I went out and got myself a little treat, got a new webcam, got the new microphone. A lot of you guys out there were telling me, I need a new camera, you need a new microphone. I went out and I got it. So anything else that you guys want to see added to the show, drop it in the comments down below. I'm always looking forward to what you guys have to say about, the news headlines and even what you think we can do here on the show to improve it. So let us know down below in the comments, and hope you guys have a great night. Enjoy your day, whether you're out there at work right now, you're at the gym listening. Hope to see you guys all on Fight Night. Until next time, guys, I'm Evil Eddie from Pure Evil MMA, mymmanews.com, where you can get all your latest news for MMA. Stay in touch, get your daily dose of MMA news. Guys, have a great weekend, and enjoy the fights. Oh, and last thing, behave yourselves.